Adishewa, I'm deeply in love with you too, Tunde said, his voice steady but uncertain. But I'm not ready to settle down yet. I need more time. Adeshewa's heart sank. What do you mean you need more time? Adeshewa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Tunde sighed, looking down at his hands. I don't know if I'm ready to take on this responsibility of marriage just yet, he explained. There is so much I still need to figure out. In the bustling city of Lagos, where the skyline was dotted with high-rising buildings, stood a grand mansion that everyone admired. It was the home of Chief Adewale, a man known for his success and influence in the business world. His mansion was unlike any other, with tall gates, manicured gardens, and a driveway that seemed to stretch for miles. Inside, everything sparkled with luxury. Living in this grand house was Adeshewa, Chief Adewale's only daughter, and the apple of his eyes. She was beautiful, with skin as smooth as silk, and even a smile that could light up any room. Everywhere she went, people admired her, not just for her looks, but also for her intelligence and grace. Adeshewa was smart, driven, and determined to make her own mark in the world, even though she was born into immense wealth. Chief Adewale was incredibly proud of his daughter. He had worked hard to build his company, the Adewale Group, a conglomerate worth billions of naira, and he was grooming Adeshewa to one day take over. Their company dealt with everything from real estate to oil, and their success was unmatched in the business world. Despite his wealth and power, Chief Adewale was a man of principle, and he had raised Adeshewa with strong values. Adeshewa was not like other wealthy girls who spent their days shopping and attending parties. She worked hard in the family company, managing different departments and gaining experience in every aspect of the business. Her colleagues admired her for her work ethic, and though she was the boss's daughter, she never acted like it. Instead, she earned the respect of everyone around her through her dedication and her skill. In the evenings, after long days of work, Adeshewa and her father would often sit together in their grand living room, talking about the future. Chief Adewale would always remind her of the importance of hard work and integrity, two qualities that helped him build his empire. He would tell her stories of his humble beginnings and how he had built the company up from the ground. I want you to continue what I've started, Adeshewa, Chief Adewale would say. You are my pride, and I know you will take this company to even more greater heights. Adeshewa would nod, her heart swelling with both pride and pressure. She loved her father deeply and wanted to make him proud. She knew that being the only child meant a lot of responsibility, but she was ready for it. After all, she had learned from the best. Life was perfect, or so it seemed. Adeshewa had everything she could ever want: a loving father, a luxurious lifestyle, and a bright future. But in the midst of all this wealth and success, there was one thing missing from her life, which is love. Though many young men from wealthy families admired her and sought her attention, but none of them captured her heart. She was waiting for something real, something that wasn't just about money or status. But for now, she was content. She had her father and her work, and her dreams for the future. Life in the Adewale mansion carried on as usual, with Adeshewa spending most of her time between the office and home. One day, something changed. Love, as unexpected as it often is, quietly found its way into Adeshewa's heart, and it wasn't with one of those wealthy young men who often tried to win her favor at the lavish events she attended. No, Adeshewa's heart was captured by someone much more closer to home. It was Tunde, her father's personal assistant. Tunde wasn't like the men from Adeshewa's social cycle. He was humble, hardworking, and deeply kind. He had been working for Chief Adewale for a few years now, handling important tasks, scheduling meetings, and making sure everything ran smoothly for the business. Tunde was always in the background, doing his job with quiet efficiency. He wasn't rich, nor did he come from a prominent family, but what he lacked in wealth, he made up for with character and integrity. At first, Adeshewa hadn't paid much attention to Tunde. He was just another employee, someone who helped her father. But slowly, she began to notice him. He started with the little things. Tunde always greeted her with a warm smile whenever she walked into the office. He remembered the small details about her day, like her favorite coffee order or when she had a busy schedule ahead. Whenever she seemed stressed or overwhelmed, Tunde would offer to help in any way he could, going above and beyond what was expected of him. One evening, as Adeshawa left the office late, she found Tunde waiting outside, holding an umbrella to shield her from the unexpected rain. "I couldn't let you get drenched, Miss Adeshawa," he said with a soft smile. That moment, simple yet thoughtful, sparked something in Adeshawa's heart. She had dated men who brought her expensive gifts and took her to extravagant places, but none of them had ever made her so seen. Tunde's quiet, consistent kindness touched her deeply, and over time, their connection grew stronger. They began to have longer conversations, first about work and then about life. Tunde was easy to talk to. He listened, really listened to her thoughts, her dreams and her fears. Adeshawa found herself drawn to him, and soon she realized that she was falling in love. Tunde too felt something for Adeshawa. Though he tried to keep it professional, he couldn't deny the way his heart raced whenever she was near. He admired her intelligence, her kindness, and the way she treated everyone, regardless of their status. But Tunde knew his place. He was her father's assistant, and she was the daughter of one of the most powerful men in Lagos. How could he ever hope to be more than just an employee? Chief Adewale, sharp and observant as ever, noticed the growing affection between his daughter and Tunde. Unlike many fathers in his position, Chief Adewale did not discourage it. He had always trusted Adeshawa's judgment and knew that Tunde was a good man. He valued Tunde's hard work and loyalty and believed that a person's worth wasn't measured by their wealth or status. What mattered most to him was his daughter's happiness. One day, Chief Adewale called Tunde into his office. Tunde's heart raced as he entered, unsure of what the meeting was about. Had Chief Adewale noticed his feelings for Adeshawa? Would he lose his job? "Tunde," Chief Adewale began, leaning back in his chair. "You've been with this company for a long time now, and you've always served me well. I noticed the way you care for my daughter." Tunde swallowed nervously, unsure of where the conversation was headed. "I know she means a lot to you," Chief Adewale continued, his voice calm and steady. "And if she is happy with you, that's all that matters to me. I'm going to promote you, and you've earned it." Tunde was speechless. He had expected the worst, but here was Chief Adewale not only acknowledging his feelings for Adeshawa, but supporting them. "Thank you so much, sir. Thank you," Tunde stammered, still in shock. I promise that I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Chief Adewale said with a nod. "Now go on and keep making my daughter happy." Adeshawa was overjoyed when Tunde told her about the promotion. She couldn't believe how supportive her father was. From that moment, their relationship blossomed even more. They spent as much time together as possible, finding joy in the little things, stolen moments, during lunch breaks, late night phone calls and weekend picnics where they could just be themselves without the weight of expectations. Tunde often surprised Adeshawa with flowers, not the extravagant ones she was used to, but simple, thoughtful arrangement of her favorite blooms. He knew what made her smile, and every time he brought her flowers, it filled her heart with warmth. "I don't need anything fancy," Adeshawa would tell him with a laugh. "It's the thought that counts." And it truly was. Tunde's gestures, no matter how small, made Adeshawa feel loved and cherished in a way she had never experienced before. Adeshawa's love for Tunde grew deeper with each passing day. They had fallen into a rhythm that felt natural and comforting. They spent time together whenever they could. But Adeshawa wasn't content with just being Tunde's girlfriend. As much as she enjoyed their relationship, she began to dream of something more. She saw herself marrying Tunde, building a home together and starting a family. Every time they talked about the future, she couldn't help but imagine their lives intertwined forever. In the quiet moments when she was alone, Adeshawa would picture herself in a white wedding gown, walking down the aisle towards Tunde, their families smiling proudly from the pews. She imagined the sound of laughter filling their home, the pity-patter of the little feet as their children ran around the house. These dreams made her heart swell with hope, and she knew that Tunde was the man she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. One evening, after a long day at work, Adeshawa decided to open up to Tunde about her dreams. They were sitting together in the mansion's garden, the soft glow of the setting sun casting a warm light over them. The gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the trees and everything felt perfect. Tunde, Adeshawa began, her voice soft as she looked into his eyes. I've been thinking about our future lately. Tunde smiled, his expression gentle and loving. What about it? He asked. I love you, Adeshawa continued. I want us to get married. I want to build a life with you, a family, a home where we can raise our children together. Her words hung in the air, filled with hope and sincerity. She had never been more sure of anything in her life. She wanted Tunde by her side forever, and she believed that they could have a beautiful future together. But Tunde's smile faltered, and Adeshawa immediately noticed the hesitation in his eyes. He looked down for a moment, gathering his thoughts, before responding. Adeshawa, I'm deeply in love with you too, Tunde said, his voice steady but uncertain. But I'm not ready to settle down yet. I need more time. Adeshawa's heart sank. She hadn't expected this answer in her mind. Everything had seemed so clear and perfect, but now doubt began to creep in. What do you mean you need more time? Adeshawa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Tunde sighed, looking down at his hands. I don't know if I'm ready to take on this responsibility of marriage just yet, he explained. There is so much I still need to figure out about my career, about my life. I don't want to rush into something as important as marriage until I'm absolutely sure. Adeshawa was disappointed, but she tried to understand. She knew Tunde well enough to know that he took things seriously. He wasn't the type to make decisions lightly, especially when it came to something as significant as marriage. Still, it didn't make her heart ache any less. I understand, she said, trying to hide her disappointment. I've been dreaming of a future with you. But if you need more time, I'm willing to wait. Tunde reached for her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. Thank you so much, Adeshawa. I just need to make sure I'm ready for this step. When the time is right, we'll get there. They sat in silence for a while after that, each lost in their own thoughts. Adeshawa appreciated Tunde's honesty, but the conversation left a small ache in her heart. She had been so sure that marriage was the next step for them, but now, that dream felt a little more distant. In the days that followed, Adeshawa tried to push the disappointment aside and focus on the present. She loved Tunde, and she knew that rushing him into marriage wouldn't be fair at all. Their relationship was still strong, and they continued to cherish the moment they had together. They laughed, shared meals, and supported each other in their careers. Adeshawa threw herself into her work at the company, excelling in every project she handled. Her colleagues admired her even more, not just for her intelligence and work ethic, but for her kindness and humility. She never flaunted her wealth or status, and that made her beloved by all who worked with her. Months had passed since Adeshawa had shared her dream of a future with Tunde. Despite the fact that they weren't ready for marriage yet, their relationship continued to grow stronger. Adeshawa had come to terms with Tunde's need for time and had thrown herself into her work. Between managing her responsibilities at her father's company and spending time with her father, her days were always full, but Tunde was never far from her thoughts. She loved him deeply, and though she had set aside her dream of marriage for now, she still cherished every moment they spent together. Their relationship continued to blossom, and a few months down the line, Adeshawa started feeling unwell. It started when she began feeling so weak. At first, she thought it was just stress from work, or perhaps the long hours she had been putting in. But when the nausea persisted and she found herself feeling so exhausted all the time, she knew something was different. After a few days of avoiding the issue, Adeshawa decided to take a pregnancy test, hoping it would ease her mind. The result left her speechless. She was pregnant. Adeshawa sat down on her bed, staring at the positive test in disbelief. A flood of emotion rushed through her. Joy, fear, excitement and anxiety all at once. She had always dreamt of having children, but this wasn't how she had imagined it happening. She wasn't married yet, and though she loved Tunde deeply, she wasn't sure how he or her father would react to the news. Unsure of what to do, Adeshawa picked her phone and called her best friend Ireti. Ireti had always been her confidant, the one person she could share anything with. If anyone could help her sort through her emotions, it definitely was Ireti. Ireti, please, can you come over? Adeshawa asked, her voice shaking. Of course, Ireti replied without hesitation. I'll be there in a few minutes. When Ireti arrived, Adeshawa led her to the living room where they sat down together. She took a deep breath, gathering the courage to say the words out loud. Ireti, I am pregnant, she whispered, her eyes wide with a mix of joy and fear. Ireti's mouth fell open in shock. Oh my goodness, are you serious? She asked, leaning forward in excitement. Have you told Tunde or your father yet? Adeshawa shook her head. No, not yet. I don't know how they will react. I mean, I love Tunde, but we are not even married. And my father, I just don't know how to tell him. Ireti reached out and placed a comforting hand on Adeshawa's arm. It's going to be okay, Shewa. You are strong, and no matter what happens, you will get through this. Tunde loves you, and your father will come around, but you need to tell them both as soon as you can. Adeshawa nodded, knowing that Ireti was right. She couldn't keep the pregnancy a secret forever. It was just a matter of finding the right time and the courage to let them know. A few days later, Adeshawa decided it was time to tell Tunde. They met up at their usual spot, a quiet restaurant in the city where they often spent their evenings together. Adeshawa's heart raced as she sat across from him, wondering how he would react to the life-changing news she was about to share. Tunde, there's something I need to tell you, she began, her voice hesitant. Tunde looked at her with concern. What is it? You seemed worried, my love. Adeshawa took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. I'm pregnant. For a moment, Tunde's face was frozen in shock. He blinked, trying to process the words. You're pregnant, he repeated, his voice a mix of surprise and disbelief. Adeshawa nodded, watching him closely for any sign of his true feelings. After a few seconds of silence, Tunde's expression softened, and he reached out to take her hand. Shewa, I wasn't expecting this, but don't worry. We'll figure this out together. I love you, and I'll be here for you and the baby. Adeshawa's heart swelled with relief. She had been so worried that Tunde might not be ready for this responsibility, but his words reassured her. They spent the rest of the evening talking about their future, discussing what they needed to do next, and how they would tell Chief Adewale. But when it came time to tell her father, things didn't go as smoothly. Adeshawa sat down with Chief Adewale in his study one evening, her stomach in knots. Her father had always been supportive of her, but she had never disappointed him before. She didn't know how he would take the news of her pregnancy, especially since she and Tunde weren't married. Dad, she began, her voice shaky, there was something I need to tell you. Chief Adewale looked up from his desk, sensing the seriousness in her tone. What is it, Adeshawa? She took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. Daddy, I'm pregnant. For a moment, Chief Adewale was silent, his face unreadable. Then, without warning, his expression darkened, and he stood up from his chair, pacing back and forth across the room. How could this happen, Adeshawa? He asked, his voice rising in anger. How dare you put yourself in this situation without being married? Adeshawa's eyes filled with tears, but before she could say anything, Chief Adewale turned towards the door. Where is Tunde? I need to speak with him right now. He stormed out of the study, leaving Adeshawa behind, her heart sinking. She hadn't expected her father to be so angry, and now she feared what would happen next. When Chief Adewale confronted Tunde, his fury was evident. Tunde, Chief Adewale shouted, how dare you put my daughter in this position without marrying her? Tunde, taken aback by the intensity of Chief Adewale's anger, tried to explain. Chief, I didn't mean for this to happen like this. I love Adeshawa, and I've already promised her I will take responsibility, full responsibility, sir. Then why haven't you married her yet? Chief Adewale demanded, his voice filled with frustration. Do you think this is some casual relationship? My daughter deserves better. Tunde hesitated, his eyes dropping to the floor. Sir, I need more time. I just need more time, Chief. I'm not ready to settle down just yet. I have some things I'm still trying to figure out. Chief Adewale's face hardened with disappointment. You are not ready. You are about to become a father, Tunde, and you are not ready. There is no more time to waste. You need to make this right, or you will lose her forever." With that, Chief Adewale left the room, leaving Tunde to reflect on his words. Adeshawa could see the tension building between them, and she wasn't sure what would happen next. She loved Tunde, but she also respected her father's wishes. The weight of the situation hung heavily on her heart. That night, as Adeshawa lay in bed, she couldn't help but feel torn between the two most important men in her life. She wanted to start a family with Tunde, but she also didn't want to disappoint her father. What would happen now? Would Tunde step up and marry her, or would the pressure be too much for him to handle? She wondered. The days following Chief Adewale's confrontation with Tunde were tense and filled with uncertainty. Adeshawa had never seen her father so angry before. The disappointment in his eyes had shaken her to the core. She couldn't help but feel responsible for the entire situation. She loved Tunde, but her father's words echoed in her mind constantly, reminding her of the gravity of the situation. Chief Adewale, a man known for his decisiveness in both business and personal matter, wasn't going to sit idly while his daughter's future hung in the balance. After giving it much thought, he made a decision, one that would not only protect his daughter, but also send a strong message to Tunde. Early one morning, he called Tunde into his office at the company. The tension in the air was thick as Tunde walked in, his expression somber. He knew this conversation would be difficult, but he wasn't prepared for what Chief Adewale was about to say. "Tunde," Chief Adewale began, his tone stern but controlled. "I trusted you. You were more than just my assistant. You were someone I thought I could rely on, both professionally and personally." Tunde lowered his gaze, the weight of Chief Adewale's word setting on him like a heavy burden. "Chief, I never meant for things to get this complicated. I love Adeshawa, and I don't want to hurt her." Chief Adewale sighed, shaking his head. "Love isn't enough in this situation, Tunde. You've placed my daughter in a position that she didn't deserve, and yet, when I asked you to take responsibility by marrying her, you hesitated." Tunde wanted to defend himself, to explain that he wasn't ready for marriage yet, but he knew it wouldn't matter. Chief Adewale had already made up his mind. "I can't allow this to continue," Chief Adewale said firmly. "As of today, you are no longer employed here. You are dismissed from your duty, and I don't want to see you anywhere near my daughter again." Tunde's heart sank. He had expected anger, maybe even disappointment, but to be sacked, he hadn't seen this coming. His mouth went dry as he struggled to find the right words, but none came. Chief Adewale's decision was final. "I understand," Tunde finally whispered, his voice low and filled with regret. "Chief, I am so sorry. I am sincerely sorry for everything." Chief Adewale didn't respond. He simply nodded towards the door, signaling that the conversation was over. Tunde left the office, his head hanging low, knowing that he had not only lost his job, but also the woman he loved dearly. When Adeshawa found out that her father had sacked Tunde, her world came crashing down. She couldn't believe that things had escalated so quickly. The man she loved was gone, and her heart ached with a pain she had never felt before. She cried for days, unable to understand how everything had spiraled out of control. One evening, as she sat on her bed, her eyes red and swollen from crying, Chief Adewale came into her room. He knocked gently on the door before entering, his expression soft but firm. "Adeshawa," he began, "I know you're hurting, but I did what I thought was best for you." Adeshawa wiped her tears. "Dad, I love him. Why did you have to do this? Why couldn't you just let us figure things out on our own?" Chief Adewale sighed. "Because you deserve better than a man who isn't ready to step up and take responsibility. You are my only daughter, and I've spent my entire life making sure you have everything you needed. I can't stand by and watch you settle for someone who can give you the future you deserve." Adeshawa looked at her father, her heart torn between the love she felt for Tunde and the loyalty she had to her father. She wanted to be angry with him, but deep down, she understood that everything he had done was out of love and concern for her well-being. "You deserve better, Adeshawa," Chief Adewale continued, his voice gentle but firm. "Promise me you will never contact him again." Adeshawa hesitated, her mind racing with thoughts of Tunde and the love they had shared. But in that moment, she saw the pain in her father's eyes, the worry etched into his features. He wasn't just being strict, he was trying to protect her, just like he had always done. Okay, Dad, Adeshawa whispered. I promise. Reluctantly, she agreed, though her heart ached with every word. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she couldn't bear to disappoint her father any further. He had always been there for her, and she owed it to him to honor his wishes. In the days that followed, Adeshawa tried to move on, but the pain lingered. Ireti, always the loyal friend, stayed by her side through it all. She understood the depth of Adeshawa's feeling for Tunde, but she also knew that Chief Adewale's decision had been made with the best of intentions. It's going to be okay, Adeshawa, Ireti assured her. You are strong, and you have your whole life ahead of you. Focus on the baby and yourself for now. Everything else will fall into place. Adeshawa nodded, trying to believe her friend's words. But the truth was, she felt lost without Tunde. Tunde had been such a big part of her life, and now he was gone. Every memory they had shared felt like a wound that wouldn't heal. And as her pregnancy progressed, Adeshawa began to find solace in the preparations for the baby. Her father, determined to make up for the heartbreak she had endured, spared no expense in ensuring that Adeshawa and the baby were well taken care of. He hired the best physicians, arranged for private consultation, and even redecorated a room in the mansion to serve as her nursery. I want you and my grandchild to have everything you need, Chief Adewale told her one day, his voice filled with determination. You are not alone in this, Adeshawa. Despite her father's efforts to comfort her, her heart remained heavy. She couldn't help but think of Tunde and the life they might have had together. But every time she thought of reaching out to him, she remembered the promise she had made to her father, and she held back. And as the months passed, she slowly began to accept the reality of her situation. With Ireti by her side and her father's support, she started to focus on the future, which was the arrival of her baby. Months had passed since the heartbreak of Tunde's departure from Adeshawa's life, and though the pain lingered, her life continued to move forward. As her pregnancy progressed, Chief Adewale made sure that his daughter was well taken care of. He arranged for her to receive the best medical care abroad, knowing that she needed both physical and emotional healing. He wanted his daughter to have everything she deserved and more. When the time finally came, Adeshawa gave birth to a very beautiful baby girl. The moment she held her daughter in her arms, a sense of peace and purpose washed over her. The tiny bundle in her arms was so perfect, with delicate features and soft dark hair. Adeshawa named her Murayo, meaning I have found joy. For that was what this baby had brought her, a sense of joy and hope she hadn't felt in a long time. Chief Adewale was overjoyed when he received the news. He immediately arranged to travel abroad to meet his granddaughter, and when he finally heard Murayo, tears welled up in his eyes. For the first time in a long while, his heart felt lighter. His daughter, who had been through so much, now had a new beginning with her own child. You've done so well, my Adeshawa, Chief Adewale said softly as he cradled his granddaughter in his arms. This little one will bring us so much happiness, he said. Adeshawa smiled, watching her father bond with Murayo. Though she missed Tunde, she knew that her daughter was her priority now. Murayo was the light in her life, and she was determined to give her everything she needed to grow up healthy and happy. The next 2 years flew by so fast, and in that time Adeshawa flourished as a mother. She returned home after her recovery and quickly took on more responsibility within the family's business. Chief Adewale had started to step back, slowly preparing Adeshawa to take over the company one day. She had always been involved in the business, but now she was stepping into a new role, acting CEO. Adeshawa proved to be a natural leader. Her intelligence, work ethic, and ability to make tough decisions impressed everyone at the company. Even those who had doubted her in the beginning soon realized that she was more than capable of leading the company to even greater heights. Under her guidance, the Adewale Group expanded into new markets and secured deals that solidified their position as one of the most powerful conglomerates in Nigeria. As the company thrived, so did Adeshawa's personal life. She and her daughter Murayo shared a bond that was filled with so much love and unbreakable. Morale's laughter filled their home, and every moment with her reminded Adeshewa of the strength and resilience she had found within herself. Her heart had healed in many ways, but there was still one part of her that remained guarded, the part that had loved Tunde. Though Adeshewa rarely spoke of him, Tunde had never fully left her thoughts. She tried her best to move on, to focus on her daughter and her career, but deep down, the memory of their time together still lingered. What hurt the most was knowing that Tunde had loved her too, but fear and uncertainty had driven them apart. Meanwhile, Tunde's life had changed as well. He had found another job and tried to rebuild his life over the last 2 years. But no matter how much time passed, he couldn't forget about Adeshewa. The regret of losing her and the daughter they had never met haunted him. He had tried to move on, but there was always something missing. The emptiness that came from walking away from the woman he loved was something he couldn't shake, no matter how hard he tried. It was a regular afternoon for Adeshewa. She had a meeting scheduled with a potential business partner, and as usual, she was focused and very prepared. She walked into the boardroom, expecting the meeting to proceed like any other, but the moment she stepped inside, her heart stopped. Sitting across from her table was Tunde. For a brief second, time seemed to freeze. Tunde's eyes widened with surprise as he took in the sight of her, Adeshewa, the woman he had loved and lost. She looked as beautiful as ever, even more beautiful, but there was something different about her now. She was more confident and more assured. The weight of responsibility and motherhood had made her stronger, and it showed in the way she carried herself. Adeshewa, however, was not as pleased to see him. The moment her eyes met Tunde's, her expression turned cold. She wasn't the same woman who had once loved him unconditionally. Too much had happened since then. Too much hurt, too much betrayal. She couldn't allow herself to be vulnerable again, not after everything that she had gone through. "I can't continue this meeting," Adeshewa said firmly, her voice steady and emotionless. The room fell silence as her words hung in the air. The other executive and business partners exchanged confused glances, unsure of what was happening. Tunde too was caught off guard, his heart sinking as he watched Adeshewa turn on her heels and walk out of the room without looking back. Tunde sat there in shock, unable to process what had just happened. He had hoped, after all this time, that maybe things between them could be different, but seeing the coldness in her eyes had shattered that hope. He had lost her, and this meeting had only confirmed it. Later that evening, Adeshewa sat with Ireti, recounting the events of the day. "I don't know why seeing him again made me so angry. So angry," Adeshewa confessed, shaking her head. "I thought I had moved on, but the moment I saw him, all the hurt came rushing back." Ireti, ever the voice of reason, placed a comforting hand on Adeshewa's shoulder. "It is normal to feel that way, Adeshewa. You loved him deeply, and he hurts you. It's not easy to forget that." Adeshewa sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I just don't want him in my life anymore. I have my daughter Morayo, and I am not going to let him disrupt the peace we've built." "Of course," Ireti agreed, "but you also need to allow yourself to feel. Bottling up your emotions won't make them go away, you know." Adeshewa nodded, though deep down she wasn't sure how to feel. She had worked so hard to build a new life for herself and her child, and the last thing she needed was Tunde stirring up old memories. But no matter how hard she tried to bury her feelings, seeing him again had reopened a wound she thought had healed. As the night grew on, Adeshewa sat in her room watching Morayo sleep peacefully in her crib. Her daughter's soft breathing filled the silence, and for a moment, Adeshewa allowed herself to feel the weight of her emotions. She hadn't just lost Tunde, she had lost the future she had once dreamt of. But as she looked at Morayo, she reminded herself of the strength she had gained. She was a mother now, a leader, and she had built a life that she was so proud of. Tunde couldn't shake the heavy feeling of regret that had settled in his heart after the brief encounter with Adeshewa. Seeing her walked out of that meeting without a second glance had stung, but he couldn't blame her. He knew he had let her down. He had walked away at the time when she needed him the most. And now, not only had he lost her, but he had also missed out on precious moments with his child, a child he had never even met. The weight of his decisions haunted him, and no matter how much time passed, the ache of missing Adeshewa and his daughter only grew stronger. Tunde knew he had to make things right, or at least try. So with a determined heart, he decided to visit Adeshewa's office again, hoping she would give him a chance to explain himself. The next day, Tunde arrived at her office unannounced. He walked up to the receptionist and asked if he could see Adeshewa. "I will let her know you are here," the receptionist said politely, glancing at him with curiosity. It wasn't every day that someone showed up looking as anxious and as hopeful as Tunde did. Tunde waited, his heart racing as the minutes stretched into hours. He sat in the lobby, his thoughts swelling with memories of Adeshewa, the way she used to smile at him, the love they once shared, and the life they could have had together. He hoped that she would come down to see him, but with each passing moment, his hope dwindled. Inside her office, Adeshewa had been informed of Tunde's arrival. Her initial reaction was one of frustration. She wasn't ready to face him again, not after the way he had walked away from her life. She had worked too hard to rebuild her world, and she didn't want Tunde to disrupt the peace she had created for herself and her daughter. For hours, she kept him waiting, unsure of whether she wanted to see him at all. But as the day wore on, Ireti, her ever-present voice of reason, gently urged her to give him a chance. "Adeshewa, you've kept him waiting for long enough," Ireti said softly. "I know you are angry, but maybe it's time to just hear him out. He's the father of your child after all, and you can't take that away from him." Adeshewa sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I don't know, Ireti. I've built a life without him. What good would it do to let him back in now?" Ireti placed a hand on her shoulder. "Adeshewa, you are strong. I've seen you navigate through so much, but sometimes closure is what we need to truly move forward. You don't have to forgive him, but at least just let him speak." After a long pause, Adeshewa finally relented. "Fine, I will give him a few minutes tomorrow, but that's all." The following day, Adeshewa agreed to meet with Tunde. She didn't want to drag out the conversation, so she arranged for a brief meeting in her office. Tunde arrived on time, and the moment he stepped into the room, he felt the tension in the air. Adeshewa's expression was cold, her arms crossed as she stood by her desk, clearly keeping her guard up. "You've got 10 minutes and it's counting," Adeshewa said, gesturing for Tunde to sit down. Tunde sat, his heart pounding as she tried to find the right words. He had rehearsed this moment over and over in his mind, but now that he was here, everything felt jumbled. Finally, he took a deep breath and spoke. "Adeshewa, I know I've made mistakes," Tunde began, his voice laced with regret. "I walked away when I should have stayed. I let my fear of commitment get in the way and I hurt you. I've missed you and our child. Not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about the life we could have had together." She had dreamt of hearing him say those things once, but now it felt really too late. "You had your chance, Tunde," she replied, her voice steady but cold. "You made your choice when you left me to deal with everything on my own." Tunde nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but please, I want to be a part of our daughter's life. I want to be there for her, even if I can't be there for you." Adeshewa hesitated, her emotions swelling within her. She wasn't ready to let him back into her life, but Morayo had the right to know her father. She couldn't deny that, no matter how much pain Tunde had caused her. "I'm not ready for any of that, Tunde," Adeshewa said firmly. Please, Adeshewa, I beg you, just give me this chance to know our child at least." Adeshewa sighed, looking at him. "Morayo deserves to know her father, and I'll give you the chance to see her, but that's it. Twice a week, no more, no less." Tunde's eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you so much, Adeshewa. I promise I won't let you or Morayo down." Though Adeshewa's heart remained guarded, she nodded and dismissed him, wanting to keep the interaction brief. As Tunde left her office, a mix of emotions filled her. She wasn't sure if she was doing the right thing, but she knew Morayo had the right to know her father, even if she wasn't ready to forgive him yet. As the weeks went by, Tunde began visiting Morayo twice a week, as Adeshewa had allowed. Each time he visited, he brought gifts for his daughter, little toys, books and clothes. At first, Morayo was shy around him, unsure of who this man was, But as time passed, she began to grow attached to him. Every time Tunde arrived, Mariah would run towards him, her eyes lighting up with excitement. She would jump on him, wrapping her small arms around his neck as he lifted her into the air. Tunde's heart swelled with love for his daughter. Though he had missed out on the early years of her life, he was determined to make up for lost time. He played with her, read to her, and showered her with love and attention. Slowly but surely, they began to form a bond that filled Tunde's heart with hope. Meanwhile, Adeshewa watched from a distance. She was happy to see Morayo bonding with her father, but she kept her distance from Tunde, maintaining the boundaries she had set. She wasn't ready to forgive him yet, but she couldn't deny that seeing him with their daughter stirred something inside of her. One evening, after Tunde had left, Adeshewa sat with Ireti, reflecting on the changes in her life. Morayo is growing so attached to him, Adeshewa said quietly, sipping her tea. She asks for him constantly now. It's like she has known him all along. Ireti smiled softly. Children have a way of bringing people together. Maybe Morayo will be the bridge that helps you and Tunde find a common ground. Adeshewa shook her head, though a part of her wondered if Ireti was right. I am not sure, Ireti. It's not that easy. He's hurt me deeply and I can't forget that. I know it's not easy, Ireti replied. But sometimes, forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about finding peace for yourself and for your child. Take your time, Adeshewa. You don't have to rush into anything. Adeshewa nodded, her thought drifting to Tunde. She wasn't sure of the future, but for now, she was content knowing that Morayo was happy and that was all that mattered. As the weeks passed, Tunde continued to visit Morayo regularly. His relationship with his daughter flourished, but his longing for Adeshewa grew stronger with each passing day. Each time he saw her, his heart ached for the love they once shared. He knew that he had made a mistake by letting her go, and now all he wanted was a second chance to make things right. But despite his efforts, Adeshewa remained distant. Though she allowed him to be part of Morayo's life, she kept a wall between them, guarding her heart against the man who had once hurt her. Tunde understood her hesitation, but that didn't make it any easier. He missed the closeness they once had, and he longed to win her back, even if it meant waiting for as long as it took. One day, something unexpected happened. It started when Adeshewa began feeling unwell. At first, she dismissed the symptoms, thinking it was just fatigue from her very busy schedule as acting CEO. But as the days went on, her condition worsened. She became so weak, constantly tired, and found it difficult to keep up with her usual responsibility. One evening, as Tunde arrived to visit Morayo, he immediately noticed that something was wrong. Adeshewa looked pale, her usual vibrant energy replaced with exhaustion. She tried to brush it off, but Tunde wasn't convinced. Adeshewa, you don't look well at all, Tunde said, concern etched on his face. Have you been to the doctor? I'm fine, Adeshewa replied, though her voice lacked its usual strength. It's just work. I've been pushing myself too hard lately. Tunde frowned, not buying her explanation. You need to rest. I'll take care of Morayo tonight. You just go lie down. At first, Adeshewa resisted, not wanting to appear weak, but her body had other plans, and she finally gave in, retreating to her bedroom while Tunde took over caring for their daughter. As the days passed, Adeshewa's condition didn't improve. Tunde, sensing that she needed more help than she was willing to admit, began stepping in more frequently. He cooked her meals, made sure she stayed hydrated, and even hired a doctor to come to the house to check on her. I'm fine really, Adeshewa said one afternoon as Tunde placed a tray of food on her bedside table. You don't need to do all this. But Tunde shook his head. I'm not letting you go through this alone, Adeshewa. You need to rest, and I'm going to make sure you get better. Despite her stubbornness, Adeshewa couldn't deny how much she appreciated Tunde's care. He was there for her in ways she hadn't expected. And slowly, the world she had built around herself was beginning to crack. She hadn't wanted to rely on him again, but his presence brought her comfort. One evening, as she lay in bed feeling slightly better after the days of rest, Tunde came into her room with a cup of tea. He sat down beside her, the two of them sharing a quiet moment as the house remained still. Thank you, Tunde, Adeshawa said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. For everything. I don't know what I would have done if you were not here to help. Tunde smiled. You don't have to thank me. Adeshawa, I care about you. I always have. You're the mother of my child. For a moment, their eyes met, and the unspoken feelings between them lingered in the air. Adeshawa felt her heart skip a beat, and before she knew it, they were leaning towards each other. In the stillness of the night, their lips met in an unexpected but tender kiss. The kiss took both of them by surprise. It was soft, filled with the emotions they had tried to suppress for so long. But as soon as it ended, Adeshawa quickly pulled back, her heart racing. I didn't mean for that to happen, she stammered, her cheek flushed. Tunde, however, couldn't hide the smile that crept across his face. I've been waiting for that moment for a long time, he admitted, his voice gentle. Adeshawa tried to downplay the kiss, insisting it was just a moment of weakness. But deep down, she couldn't deny the feelings that had resurfaced. The kiss had stirred something inside her, something she thought she had buried a long time ago. In the days that followed, Tunde continued to care for Adeshawa as she regained her strength. They didn't talk about the kiss, but the tension between them was undeniable. Every time they were in the same room, the unspoken connection between them grew stronger. As Adeshawa's health improved, so did her relationship with Tunde. She found herself softening towards him, letting go of the anger and resentment she had held onto for so long. It wasn't easy, but Tunde's patience and persistence began to break down the barriers she had built. Then one evening, after spending some time with Morayo, Tunde sat down with Adeshawa in the living room. He had been thinking about their future for weeks, and now he knew what he wanted. Adeshawa, Tunde began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I know I hurt you, and I know I don't deserve another chance, but I sincerely love you. I've always loved you, and I want to spend the rest of my life making things right. Please. Adeshawa's heart skipped a beat as she looked into his eyes. She could see the sincerity in his words, the deep regret for the mistakes he had made. But more than that, she saw the love he had for her and their daughter. Tunde got down on one knee, pulling out a small velvet box from his pocket. Please, do me this honor of being my wife, he asked, his voice soft but filled with hope. Let me prove to you that I am ready this time. Let me be the man that you deserve. Let me correct my mistake. Please, give me this chance. For a moment, Adeshawa was so speechless. She had never expected this, especially not after everything that had happened between them. But as she looked down at Tunde, she realized that love had brought them back together. Despite the pain and heartache, she still really loved him. They had found their way back to each other now. With tears in her eyes, Adeshawa nodded. Yes, Tunde, she whispered. I'll marry you. I'll be your wife. Tunde's face lit up with joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger. He stood up, pulling her into a tight embrace as they shared another kiss, this one filled with the promise of a future that they would build together. In the weeks that followed, Adeshawa and Tunde began planning their wedding, with Ireti excitedly helping with the preparations. Chief Adewale, though initially hesitant, gave his blessing, knowing that his daughter had finally found happiness again. Tunde and Adeshawa's wedding was nothing short of magical. The ceremony was held at a beautiful outdoor venue, surrounded by lush greenery and the soft glow of fairy lights. Friends and family gathered to celebrate their love, and the air was filled with laughter and joy. Chief Adewale, who had once been skeptical of Tunde, now beamed with pride as he walked his daughter down the aisle. His heart swelled with emotion, knowing that Adeshawa had found happiness again. Adeshawa looked so radiant in her white lace gown, her eyes shining with tears of joy as she walked towards Tunde. Tunde, dressed in a sharp suit, couldn't take his eyes off her. The moment felt surreal, and as they stood there before their family and friends, it was clear that this was the start of a new chapter in their lives, one filled with hope, love and promise of forever. The ceremony was simple yet heartfelt. As they exchanged vows, Tunde spoke from the depth of his heart. Adeshawa, I promise to love you, to honor you, and to be the man you deserve. I will never take this second chance for granted, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret saying yes to me. Adeshawa smiled, her heart full. Tunde, You're my past, my present, and my future. Together we'll build a life of love and laughter. I promise to stand by your side no matter what comes our way." As they were pronounced husband and wife, the crowd erupted in applause. Tunde and Adeshawa shared their first kiss as a married couple, sealing their vows with a tender embrace. After the wedding, Tunde and Adeshawa moved into a beautiful home that Chief Adewale had gifted them. The house was a symbol of new beginnings, filled with warmth and love. Morayo had her own room, decorated with pastel colors and toys, and she quickly adjusted to the new home, happy to have both her parents under one roof. Tunde and Adeshawa's marriage was built on a foundation of trust, communication, and the lessons they had learned from their past. They worked together to create a loving and supportive home where their love for each other continued to grow. Tunde's support for Adeshawa in her career allowed her to excel even further. And now, as the CEO of Adewale Group, Adeshawa was a force to be reckoned with in the business world. She led with confidence, and under her leadership, the company continued to thrive. Tunde too found success in his own career. After leaving his position at the Adewale Group, he started his own business, which quickly flourished. He was proud of his achievements, but more than that, he was proud of the family he had built with Adeshawa and Morayo. Every evening, Tunde made it a point to be home in time for dinner, where they would sit together as a family, sharing stories about their day. Their home was filled with laughter, and Morayo was the center of their world. She adored her family, and every time Tunde came home from work, she would run into his arms with excitement. Together they played games, read bedtime stories, and enjoyed every moment of parenthood. Meanwhile, Ireti, who had been by Adeshawa's side through every hardship, found love of her own. She met someone who cherished her as much as she deserved, and soon Ireti was planning her own wedding. Adeshawa and Tunde were thrilled for their dear friend, and they celebrated Ireti's happiness with as much joy as their own. And as the years passed, Tunde and Adeshawa's family continued to grow in love and unity. They traveled together, made memories, and supported each other through life's ups and downs. Chief Adewale, now retired, spent his time doting on his granddaughter and enjoying the peace, knowing that his daughter had built a beautiful life for herself. Their lives were filled with love, success, and joy, and they looked forward to the many adventures that lay ahead. Together, they knew they could face anything as long as they had each other. The moral of this story is that love, forgiveness, and second chances can lead to healing and growth. Adeshawa and Tunde's relationship shows that true love requires patience, understanding, and the willingness to walk through challenges, even after experiencing hurt and disappointment. They found their way back to each other by opening their hearts and allowing time to heal old wounds. The importance of family, communication, and the support of loved ones is also emphasized, reminding us that happiness comes from nurturing relationships and facing difficulties together. Thank you so much for watching this fantastic story on African Stories by Tiana. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing stories. See you next time.